when I was in São Paulo, I had a very good friend who was a Jungian psychologist and an author. And she stopped being a therapist, a Jungian analyst, when a client of hers came in and she said that she was sexually abused as a child. And now she had a child. She felt like sexually abusing her child. She said that was too much for her and she quit. So I had that in the back of my mind. I'm thinking of becoming a therapist, but I don't know what's going to come in. We discussed how I grew up in the countryside and that and some bits about my upbringing that were not very nice. So where do we go from here, I guess? The question was, how did I grow up, right? And it was in the countryside, and I had a step-parent and who wasn't very nice to me. And I didn't realize how much that shaped my worldview and what I thought about myself and the world. And I had an IFS session on Monday this week, and I talked to a part of me that was in exile, because it was very, of course, it's nothing is straightforward, but the dynamics as I understand now was that I was blamed for everything that was wrong, and my stepfather was trying to find something wrong with me as a teenager. He was trying to paint me as a rebel, malicious, and it wasn't true. I don't think it was true. Not the way that he did. And my mother maybe wanted to believe in it, and the conclusion I got was that it was to justify the mistreatment I received. They had to believe there was something wrong with me, that I was malicious or rebellious, because then, of course, that fit the bill of why they didn't treat me very well. So I understand that now, looking back at that part of me who was there receiving the abuse, and really wondering whether I was malicious and a rebel, because I had this feeling in me that everything I did was wrong. And of course it's a part of me that thought that, while other parts of me thought it was okay, so I've always struggled to do things for myself. I always struggled to do well at school. I've struggled to accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish. So I always wanted to write a book, I always wanted to do a PhD, I always wanted to do those things, and failed because at some point something in me felt that I just wasn't good enough to do those things, so why I shouldn't try. And I had those voices resonating in my head that I was lazy, I wasn't dedicated, I just wanted the easy way out, I just was never going to achieve anything. And that was what I've heard as a teenager, and there was a lot of pressure on me to do things in a certain way, which obviously I didn't respond very well to, because no one responds very well to being controlled. So
what was it that they wanted you to do?
They wanted me to go to a specific university, which was the only one that was free, because it was government funded. And the only subjects they did there were maths, physics, geography, stuff that you would learn to become a teacher. And that didn't really seduce me. And I wanted something else, but there wasn't an option. It wasn't an option to be or do anything else other than one of those 5 subjects. And to get into this university was very difficult because there was a lot of competition for a free university from kids who received private education or kids who had a home where there wasn't an alcoholic mother, you know, which prevents you from studying quite a bit. So I was expected to beat private school kids at an exam when I didn't go to private school. I didn't have a functioning mother at home. I had an absent stepfather, but still they wanted me to do that Herculean effort, which was beyond my capacity. And I did, somehow. I did, but it was really difficult. And the process was very painful, and I internalized this idea that I was the reason why it was difficult. I was not dedicated enough. I was not hardworking enough. I didn't understand that life needs a lot of effort, and I was lazy, or, you know, I believed it for a long time. And I think I believed it up until Monday. And now I'm talking about it, it is just so different because I wouldn't be able to really talk about it. It was so ingrained in me as truth that it wasn't accessible. I just didn't know why I found it really difficult to dedicate myself to something, and why I failed to try harder and believe in myself. Up until now, I didn't have the self-belief, or it was somewhat limited. So it has been quite liberating to have this last session, to be able to see that these beliefs were introjected, they were not real, that what I did actually was quite, you know, I did relatively well given the circumstances. So that changes everything. I feel like now, okay, I can apply for that PhD, I can start that book, you know, I can try, and I'm not lazy, I'm not malicious, I'm just normal, I guess, like everyone else.
Yeah, which is probably super obvious to everyone else around you. It's just not how you see yourself. As in, like...
Yeah, I always felt guilty, you know, I always felt like I was wrong, that I was doing something wrong, there was something malicious about me. But I couldn't put my finger on it, it wasn't accessible. And the IFS session took me there, you know, and I saw exactly the moment, and I saw also several moments of what was said and the situation and the phone calls, and, you know, and I saw all of that, and looking back from these adult eyes, I can see very clearly, okay, that's something that was done to you, not something that you were, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, going right back to the start, where was your dad in this picture?
My mother didn't want me to meet him because he was schizophrenic and quite paranoid. And back in the day when they met, he used to take a lot of drugs as well. So his mother and father, his mother was a company owner. She created her own IT consultancy company in the 70s. So she was in São Paulo. So she was very determined, a career-determined woman, no time for family. She only had the family because that's what you did in the 50s, but she had no time for family. So not very affectionate. my mother didn't like the idea of them as a family, as an environment for me growing up. And there was more to it, things that now I will never know because they all passed away. But I did get hints of stories, of a lot of conflict.
Were they together?
Not for long. They were together for maybe a couple of years, if that. And then when my mom discovered she was pregnant, she wanted a baby, but she didn't want the relationship. So she ran away.
And that was you?
And that was me, yeah.
So she ran away from Sao Paulo as well?
She stayed in São Paulo because São Paulo is a megalopoly. You can easily disappear. That's easily done. So she did that. She disappeared.
And then how did she end up in the countryside?
That's where she was from. So she went back.
When you were how old?
5. 6. Yeah, 5, 6.
And you didn't have siblings with...
No, they came... my siblings are with my stepdad.
Okay. So how did she meet him?
At a carnival. He was 10 years younger than her.
Wow.
Yeah, he was only 22 and she was 32.
And what was she doing?
My mother was a model and a TV dancer. Like the people that dance in the background on TV. She did that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what did he do, your stepdad?
He was studying. He was 22. He was really just in a university at that point and doing some part-time work or whatever.
And then at what point did they move?
Pretty quickly. My mom bought a parcel of land in Florianopolis, which was at the time a village of 20,000 people.
I've been there.
You have? And you have been there probably when it was 200,000 people. Yeah. So they bought a parcel of land in the end south of the island where you couldn't really get to very easily. They built a house in there, but he couldn't find a job because there weren't many jobs.
And she wasn't working?
No, she had an apartment in São Paulo which she rented out, and the money from that paid the bills, kind of only just though.
And so then from there they went to the countryside?
From there, that was kind of the countryside, but just a different countryside. Florianopolis was the capital, but it was very small. That's when all the domestic violence started. So my mom got pregnant, and then there was my sister, and then she got pregnant straight away with my brother, which she didn't really want to. They were epic fighting because he couldn't find a job, and my mother was worried about that and blamed him for not trying hard enough, and him just being a kid just would beat her up.
Huh. And how old were you?
6, 7, 8.
So he would beat her up?
Mm-hmm.
And was it like during drinking or after drinking or not?
Oh no, completely sober. Completely sober. There was no need, he didn't need any alcohol at all. Actually, he was quite proud that he didn't drink much.
Huh. And you were witnessing this?
I was witnessing, I was getting my fair share of beatings as well.
From him?
From him.
For what?
For making jokes, for dropping things on the floor, for being a child.
Just somewhat randomly, like depending on the day?
Yeah, like I couldn't do anything wrong. And that definition was very strict, that almost everything was wrong.
Huh. So is that like how he had power or something? When he felt powerless for not having a job or something?
He felt powerless for not having a job, and I know now that he carries a lot of trauma himself. So his father died when he was very young, and he had 11 siblings. So his mom brought them up, and that she was one of the youngest. So she couldn't bring everyone up really. So he ended up going to live with one of his sisters who was already married, and they weren't very nice to him. They didn't beat him, but he had to work when he was like 12. So, and he always had this, at the time, you know, he had an anger issue. My mother was aggressive. She's always been, because my biological father told me stories about that when we met. And he said, you know, that she would jump on him, being physically aggressive. So I think the escalation would go as far as it went. It was partially because of her. You know, she was physically aggressive. She always has been.
Huh. And what part of Brazil did your stepdad grow up in?
In the same that she did, the south of Brazil in the countryside. That's how they met. So she went back for carnival. And actually her brother is married to his sister.
Wow.
So they always knew each other.
Huh.
So it was kind of a re-encounter.
And how did you find that out about his family?
We always knew because his sister is my auntie. Was always my auntie.
And she would explain why.
We always knew the story.
About the family.
But she was an older sister. And she married my mom's brother. And we always knew who they were. And we always knew that life hasn't been easy for them. And we knew that they lost their father really young. And we knew that they all had to work and so on. But because she was 10 years older, and the older sisters were very close and they helped each other and they kind of looked after each other. The younger people, the younger boys, they were a little bit less looked after, I think.
And would he apologize for his behavior? Or did he ever?
I don't remember if he did. My mother did. But my stepfather, I don't think he has.
She apologized years later or at the time?
Oh, years later, yeah.
Was hers more to do with alcohol or it was just two things?
There were two things. She had it. I do think she had some sort of disorder. She was extremely violent and aggressive, and he would switch like that, you know. If anything upset her, she would switch, and that anger would come.
And she would just physically
beat us, yeah. But it was worse since my stepdad came into the picture. Before that, I don't have any recollection of that happening. So up to when I was 5, I don't remember anything of the sort. I remember her being extremely angry. But I don't remember any physical aggression. I think he made it worse.
And did you know that, because in the first episode we recorded, you said that it was like a common thing that happened or you said, I guess in the countryside there's a lot of domestic violence.
Yeah.
So did you understand like that was happening in other households?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, back in the day and where I was, you know, parents would beat children for being naughty. What I didn't know is that I wasn't being naughty. I just assumed that I deserved everything.
And did you talk to friends about it?
No.
Would you have bruises and stuff?
Yeah.
And would the teachers ask anything?
Oh, the teachers don't really get involved in that sort of thing over there. They wouldn't. It's not like in here. You don't have like a safeguarding policy for children in Brazil where it was. Maybe they have it now, but back in the day they wouldn't get involved. Sometimes the teachers got involved, mostly when I was a teenager, because I had also my brother and my sister at school, and they were having problems with us misbehaving, like skipping classes, and they're thinking, well, just the three of them, kind of, there's something wrong. And then because people talk, and my mother was going out in the evening, and they realized something was wrong, but there was nothing really, they did nothing. They wouldn't.
What was she doing, your mum, when she was going out?
She would just get really drunk and make out with very young boys, like in their 20s. And just behaving generally inappropriately. Punched her. She went to fight with a friend of hers who decided she was too drunk to drive. So her friend took her car keys, and then my mum tried to punch this friend, and somehow punched the floor and broke her arm, broke her hand. That's how strong she punched this lady, or didn't. She also been involved in car accidents where she just drove through a red light. Again, 6 a.m. in the morning, drunk.
And would you have to take care of her?
She wanted me to take care of her, but I didn't. That was a reason of much.
And where would your stepdad be when this was happening?
In a different city. So when we were living in Florianopolis, my sister and my brother were very young, and the police was coming around the house all the time because the neighbors would call the police all the time. And I just remember the police coming in again. I was in hospital all the time because of my asthma, because I couldn't breathe in the house. Then my mom's older sister decided it was enough, so she came and picked everyone up. And this was just after that, my aunties took me to the hospital because I couldn't walk anymore. And they found out I was almost dying of pneumonia. And Paolo, my stepdad, said I was pretending to get attention. It was really, really unfair. It was so bad. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Yeah, so they picked us up, and then they brought us to live with them for a while. And then, of course, when we were there, Paolo wouldn't do anything. My stepdad wouldn't really hit anyone. But then as soon as they bought a house, we moved in there. It started, but then my mom decided to separate, kind of partially separate from him, and he went and found a job in a different city, so he would only come every 2 weeks on the weekend. So that was good.
And they were still kind of together?
Yeah.
And did you have a good relationship with your step-siblings?
Oh, yeah.
Or half-siblings?
Half, yeah. I loved them very much.
And you were kind of on the same team?
Yeah, I was kind of looking after them. Helping my mom look after them because she was alone.
Did he treat them differently to you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But he was still pretty mean to them, though. He just looks like he has some disorder as well. I can't see that being, normal.
Do you have a relationship with him now?
Yeah. Well, he's changed.
For good?
Yeah. He married again, had another child, and that child gets treated a lot better.
At what point did that happen?
When my mum decided to separate from him, that's when she started drinking.
Huh. So he was visiting, but they weren't really together?
Yeah, well, they were married, and he was coming every 2 weeks. Then my mom separated. Then he didn't come every two. Well, he came every 2 weeks, but he wouldn't stay in the house anymore. He would stay at his sister's, and he would pick us up to spend the weekend with us. Then she started drinking. I was 15. Then it got really messy. So there was a period where we lived in the countryside. So between I was 10 and 15, that was better. It was less intense. But if he would still come every 2 weeks, and that was when the whole thing about me being a malicious teenager was going on, you know. But he wasn't even in the house. But yeah, it was a very strange period.
Okay, so and then they got divorced at some point.
Yeah. Then my mom started drinking. Then my mom found herself a husband who was 20 years younger. I moved out. I then found my real father because they had no other option. If there's any way for me to leave this environment, that's my ticket. I don't care if he's a schizophrenic or what. I'm just going. So I did.
How old were you?
16. I moved out when I was 18. So my father came to pick me up. It was very strange. We looked the same, we have the same face. And we drove up to São Paulo, and it was really hot. So as soon as I arrived at we went to his mother's apartment first. And as soon as I arrived, I opened the freezer to get some ice, and there was a dead dog in there, just kind of looking at me like this. Oh, wow! Yeah. So that tells you a lot. Because the dog died, and she didn't know what to do with it, and she didn't want to bury it, so she put it in the freezer.
The grandma?
Yeah.
Your grandma?
Yeah.
And that was the first time you met her?
Yeah, well, I've met her dead dog before I met her.
How did you find your dad?
There were yellow pages. I knew the name of the company she owned. So I called the company, and I said, I'm David's daughter.
Huh.
And just left a message and left my phone number and thought they might call, they might not. And they did. So.
And they were welcoming to you?
Yeah, they were. Then I went there and I worked with them. The company was about to close down though, but I did get a good 2 years to get a lot of experience, meet a lot of people.
So you didn't end up going to that university? Or like, how does this fit in with...
I did. I went to the university and I did 1 year.
When you were 17?
Of mathematics, yeah. Yeah, in Brazil you get into uni when you're 17. You finish school. I finished school between 16 and 17, so...
And the uni was near where your mum was?
Yeah, it was in that town, yeah.
But after a year, it was like you couldn't keep...
Well, it was maths, but it was kind of teaching maths. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to do something else. I didn't know what. No, a friend of my mom was a psychoanalyst, and he gave me a job as a 16-year-old, a part-time job, to transcribe his sessions. So, not the session, he would make voice notes after the session, and he would give me to type it in to paper, and I was fascinated. I was like, wow, this is amazing, I would love to do that. And so I had that in my head. Then I went to São Paulo, and I tried to do, for some reason, a meteorology degree, but I didn't pass the physics exam because it was very hard. And I then started a psychology degree there.
And you were living with your dad?
I was living with my grandparents for a while, but then my grandma was at the end of her business and she was in a lot of that, so she sold the apartment, sold the whatever she had of the company, and moved to the São Paulo countryside. And I stayed behind with a friend of mine who said I could live with them.
So when you were growing up at school, did you manage to have a good time and you had good friends and whatever, or it was kind of just...
No, I had a good
unhappy
time.
childhood?
I had a good time because I never really took the beatings or the abuse too hard, you know, at the time. I was like, this is normal. This is just what parents do.
Mm.
And I had my cousins, and my cousins were really fun to spend time with. And I had my siblings as well, which were really cute, and I played with them a lot, and I played with my friends. So at the time, you know, I had a good childhood. I was happy. I was always a very happy child.
And what were the things you enjoyed doing?
I enjoyed roller skating. I enjoyed playing with my cousins, playing Risk, playing chess. My family, everyone played chess. It was fun. Doing jigsaw. Yeah.
And you were, in the last episode, you mentioned reading a lot.
And I read a lot. I spent a lot of time at home or in the hospital as well because of asthma. And during a while, so my parents wouldn't let us go to our friend's house. We would play more with my cousins, but they wouldn't let us go to our friend's house. Now that I'm saying it, I'm kind of thinking maybe they were worried about what I was going to say. So we just stayed within the family. But I spent a lot of time at home reading, and my mom used to read as well. You must know Paulo Coelho. I read all his books at the time. I was only 12.
Like The Alchemist.
Yeah, all of them. It was an obsession. And he was releasing books at the time as well, so whenever there was a new one, we would go and get them. And my mom would read them as well. That was nice.
And you said you found Carl Jung when you were 12 as well.
Yeah, must have been 14. And then, of course, I was transcribing those sessions, those notes, and then that's when I learned about Freud.
Because he was a Freudian psychoanalyst.
He was a psychoanalyst, yeah. So, but he wouldn't specifically talk so much about Freud. It was more like he would mention something here and there, and then I would go on the internet and find out. Then I got his book, which I still have in Portuguese, as Clinical Cases. Ana O. That made a good impression. That made a massive impression on me, definitely.
How old were you?
16.
So you were super interested in psychology?
Yeah, I was disappointed at my degree because the degree was a lot more... It was fun, you know, it was science-based. I started there and I did it again here. And of course it's all CBT, it's all science and stuff. I didn't really feel so inspired by it because it was a bit like... this is what happens when we cut the little finger of a monkey, you know. The experiments were cruel. In Brazil we also had a rat. So each two alumni would get a rat and you train the rat for a year. And then you write up on the training of the rat, and then the rat would be killed and desiccated.
Why would it be killed?
Oh, because otherwise, what would you do with it? It's bizarre, isn't it? I was very upset by that, actually. Yeah, well, I couldn't because I didn't have my own house. If you wanted to keep it as a pet, you could, but they wouldn't be able to pass them on to the next cohort.
Because it's already being trained.
Because it's being trained, yeah. I thought that was very cruel. I didn't like that at all.
Okay, so then were things better when you left and you were able to do what you were really interested in?
Oh yeah, definitely. Moving to São Paulo was a big move.
And did you stay in close contact with your mum? Like, was she upset with you, or?
No, for a while. I didn't speak to her for a long time. Which I now regret, but at the same time, that was what I could do at the time.
And what was your dad like?
Completely nuts. Completely crazy. He would build so the last we were speaking, he was building a spaceship. And he would take all of us into the spaceship, because the spaceship would go somewhere really nice. And his girlfriend put on his... when you have those flowers on the... what do you call that?
On what?
When
like,
you die, you put in
what
do you put
in?
in? Yeah.
A flower arrangement or something.
Yeah, so she put on the message that said, "Oh, see you in the spaceship."
Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
He was very sweet and loving, but he was mad as a hatter.
So he couldn't work?
No, he couldn't work.
Did he have medication for schizophrenia?
He didn't take them. He didn't want to take them.
Huh. But he was able to have a relationship with his girlfriend.
Yeah, they were on and off. I mean, they were together for about 20 years, but they were on and off. Because it was too much for her as well.
So he had to be supported by his parents?
Yes.
And he died recently as well?
Yes.
And, so what was that like for you, getting to know this person who you hadn't known your whole life?
It was very interesting. I was very curious. I wanted to know everything about him, and I wanted to know everything about my family. And I learned good things and I learned bad things. I mean, my grandma started working at IBM when she was 19. In the 40s, that was pretty inspiring, I thought. I thought maybe I'm not destined to be shit like my mom led me to believe, She wanted me to stay in that countryside town, be safe, look after her at old age, So it was quite good that she blew it all off, because if she didn't separate and didn't become an alcoholic and then didn't go on to marry this 20-year-old guy, maybe I would have stayed. So I left, and that was a good thing.
Did she stay with that 20-year-old guy?
No, it lasted a couple of years.
Did you meet him?
Yeah.
And he was similar to your age?
Yeah, I guess I was 18, 16, 17, 18. He was 26 or something like that. At that age, the gap is still quite high, isn't it? So yeah. I didn't feel like he was my age at the time, but if you look back and thinking someone who is 6-7 years older than me is my age now.
Okay. So was there a part of you drawn to psychology because you wanted to understand what was going on?
Definitely, absolutely. But it's more from a philosophy side of things. It's more also spiritual in a way. It's more like, what's the meaning of life, What are we meant to do here? What is the experience that we are experiencing? What is it that we're doing here?
And from a young age you were interested in that?
Yeah, from a young... I remember very young thinking, what's the meaning of life? Very, very little. I was thinking, why are we alive?
So I guess in that way the psychology was disappointing when it's more about the...
Yeah, how people behave, the testing, which, yes, it led us to many breakthroughs, and it's really important, but it's just not something that I am going to engage. It's not how I see people. I don't like the mechanicist point of view,
Mm-hmm.
which there's a mechanic element to our bodies, and there is a mechanic element to our minds. That is true. But I'm not interested in that so much. I'm interested in the subtlety, what is it? We assign meaning to things. Can I deviate a little bit? Okay. I'm doing this MIT philosophy course, Minds and Machines, and they're debating whether AI can think. And they brought up the problem of John Searle, and John Searle said, I don't know if that's how we pronounce his name, he gave the Chinese, I think it's a Chinese room thought experiment. So he says, let's say that you are in this Chinese room and you have all these Chinese characters available to you, and you don't know what each one of those mean, but you do have a set of rules that you can manipulate them with. So there is a certain order where they go, and there is a certain pattern where they tend to be together, and you know these rules, you know those patterns, but you don't know what they mean. And when someone asks a question from outside the room, they show you a series of Chinese symbols in a certain order, in a certain pattern, for which you know how to respond using Chinese symbols to respond equivalently to that signal. So they give you a signal and you respond with another signal, but you don't know what you're saying. So they're saying this is AI. It has syntax, but it doesn't have semantics. We have semantics. So we attach meaning. We have meaning. What is this meaning? What is love? What is hope? This is the magic of being alive. I always found that fascinating. This is kind of a magic.
Yeah, I feel like it's very intuitive that I don't understand when people are having a conversation of like, can AI like replace humans or something? It's like, what? It's like humans made this, like how can, it's like there's something about being a human that you can't recreate, because it's like,
yes.
I don't know, like I feel it's like, haven't you, for anyone, it's like, don't you like feel all these like random emotions and things you feel, not just emotions, just like
dreams. Well, now you might be able to use the Chinese room experiment, because that really did for me. This is it. The AI does not have meaning. It does not know what it's saying. It gives you the letters, but it doesn't know what they mean. It doesn't know what the words mean.
Yeah, that makes sense. Huh. Okay, so what was your path? Did you feel lonely at this point in your life?
I always felt lonely. I think so. When I was little, me and my mom lived in a flat, and my mom wouldn't let go of me. So I didn't have many other kids to play with. So when I went to the countryside with my cousins, I was happy. But then when I went to Florianopolis, I was also alone. But I was going to school, so a little bit better. But then growing up, it was like my brother and my sister were a different level of creatures. And my mom was a different level of creature. And I couldn't see my friends. So, yeah, I always felt lonely as well, because I didn't have my nuclear family. I was always in someone else's home. And when I went to live with my father and my grandma, I mean, they were strangers, really.
And then they moved away anyway.
They moved away, and then I was living with my friend and her father, and that was actually really nice, but they didn't stay in the flat very often. So he was a doctor, and he only used the apartment Tuesdays and Thursday evenings when he worked. there. And my friend was at uni, so she would only be there on uni days. So whenever that was, maybe Monday to Thursday. So I would spend the weekends alone.
And did you enjoy that or not?
Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't.
And where did you go from that after your degree?
I came here. So I didn't finish the degree. On the at the end of the second year, this family kind of fostered me, even though I was quite old to be fostered. But they did, they took me to their Christmas, New Year's, gave me presents on my birthdays, they were really, really nice to me. Easter is big in Brazil, they always took me away. And so they, between themselves, were kind of thinking it would be good for me if I went to the US to be an au pair. And one of them in the family had a travel agency and they could arrange that for me. They would charge me, but I would pay them only once I was earning. And all I needed was a travel license. For the life of me, I couldn't pass the the driving test.
Oh, you need was a driving license?
Yeah.
Huh.
I couldn't pass the driving test. I could drive, I could park, I could stop and start at the hill. The driving test was a disaster every time.
You would just get really nervous.
I would get really nervous and shake and make lots of mistakes and fuck this.
Huh.
So I said, okay, well, I can't go to the US, but now I'm kind of geared up for getting out of the country. Where can I go? And someone on the internet said, you can go to London. London is quite a fun place. You can get a student visa at the airport. You just need money and the proof that you're studying in Brazil. And you can enroll in a course in there full time and find yourself accommodation and they'll give you at the airport. And I did that and that's what happened.
Huh. So had you left Brazil at that point?
No.
And how did you meet that friend's family? That friend whose family looked after you?
In São Paulo. We lived in the same building.
And then you just got to know them?
Yeah, so this building was really fun actually because everyone would come down, like the people the same age. The kind of people in their 1920s, they would come down to talk. There was like a garden with some seats. And I came down, of course, started chatting. So that was how.
That's so nice that they looked after you.
Oh, yeah.
And was your mum trying to get into contact at this point?
No, she was too busy trying to stay married, I guess.
Because that must have been very painful at like Christmas or those times.
I blocked it out.
It was just like, I'm living a new life and that's...
Yeah, it was really lucky that they looked after me.
Were you still in contact with your siblings and cousins and things?
Somewhat, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would still go back sometimes and spend the weekend with my mom and my brother and my sister, or whatever they were, if they were with my stepdad, and stay a weekend there. But I wouldn't be calling, there wouldn't be like a conversation going on. How are you? That wasn't a thing.
How far away is it?
Oh, far. You needed to get an overnight bus, like 600 miles or something like that.
Huh. Okay, so how old were you when you came to London?
23.
And you were just like, I'm gonna go and figure it out.
Yeah, just landed in Heathrow and got the Piccadilly line to Finsbury Park. Where the address, they gave me the address of my accommodation.
Who booked your accommodation?
I did.
And what was it?
It was a shared house full of Brazilians. I shared a room with another 2 girls. Didn't mind.
And you were studying?
Yeah, then I was doing an English course. I couldn't speak English for the life of me.
Huh, so that was part of it. You had to come and study.
Yes. I wanted to... The doctor who fostered me, when I told him my plans, he said, why don't you do a course, an English course in here, finish your university? I said, it's not just the language, it's the culture. You know, I understand that to learn language, you need to be absorbed in the culture. So I want to do that. I also want to understand, you know, I want to see places, I want to meet people, which obviously won't happen if I stay here. So he said, fair enough. And actually gave me $2,000 to bring with me.
As a gift?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really good.
And how long did you think you would stay when you came over?
I wanted to stay 6 months, but when I arrived I didn't like it. So I wanted to stay 3 months.
And then what changed?
I had a boyfriend there at the time and he cheated on me.
A boyfriend here?
There.
Oh.
So I was going to go back to be with him and he cheated on me. And I was thinking, well then I don't have to go back.
Huh.
I was going to go back, but I wanted to go back. I missed Brazil. I missed my friends. I missed my family. I missed the sun, the food. I didn't like London at first, you know. It's cold, it's expensive. I didn't see how I could possibly make it here.
What month did you arrive?
Oh, August.
Okay, so
that wasn't so bad, but as soon as it started getting cold, I was like, where is this going? It's 3 p.m, it's dark. What's happening? I don't know what's going on. I couldn't speak the language. I used to cry, you know, because it was difficult. Someone stole my mobile. I went to the police station trying to report it. Could I report it? You know, I could barely speak. So I realized, look, I have no rights here. I'm not really a person here. Why am I staying? You know, so I had no intention of really staying. But my heartbreak was so painful that I also couldn't... I could go back, but I wasn't completely inclined. I was thinking if something happens and I happen to stay, then I might. And then I met this guy in here. And we were together for a while, and then he decided he wanted to marry me.
Where was he from?
He was born here.
So things started turning around when you started dating him?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, he was a native, so he knew how to get around.
How did you meet?
On the tube. Yeah.
Amazing.
In Marylebone.
Huh. And so you were just studying English, living in Finsbury Park. Could you work? Or how did you have money?
I had money. I had saved a lot. I was working in São Paulo. I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to pay food. I got the $2,000, you know, which was a lot of money at the time, 16 years ago. I also had sued the company I was working for in Brazil, and they paid me.
For what?
Discrimination against my gender. They were paying the boys more than they were paying the girls to do the same job. I asked for a pay rise, they didn't give me. I got enough evidence and took them to justice, and they made them pay me a large sum.
Huh.
In 5 installments, and I was going to be here for 6 months, so for me that was perfect.
And then what did you do after you finished the English course?
Well, then this crazy person said, I don't want you to go back, stay with me, let's get married so you can stay. So I did.
Huh. After 6 months?
Yeah.
Was he
during 6 months. It was before my visa expired.
Was he similar age?
Yeah, same age.
And then what happened?
He started drinking. And, I mean, we were not the most well-behaved people, right? We used to smoke weed, we used to go to parties, and we were young and we didn't care.
Where were you living at this point?
North London somewhere.
In wherever he was? Like, you
moved into a room. We rented a room. He got me a job at he got me a job at the company he was working for. He was very good to me.
Did you have a proper wedding? Did you have a proper wedding?
We had a little wedding, yeah. Little one.
Did his family come?
Yes, they did.
And they were supportive and...
I don't know if they were very supportive. His family were always very good people. His father was very good. He was very understanding. I don't know if he's alive, but I hope they are. They're quite young still, so I think they are alive.
Wait, him or the parents?
The parents. And him as well. The father is Turkish Cypriot, and the mother was born here. So they were very family oriented. They welcomed me. You know, they respected his decision, even though he was very young. We were very young. They gave us food. So I felt, actually that was it. I felt so held. I felt so welcome in that house that I had no desire to go back to my life in Brazil, where I had no one, and I always felt like the outsider. And I thought, I'm gonna go back in there, gonna go back to lonely weekends, you know, empty houses. I don't want that anymore. I wanted to stay. So that, you know, that family was the reason why I stayed. I felt so welcome. I liked Sundays having dinner together with his family. You know, I liked it. I liked that they came to see us when we were ill. You know, I liked all of this. But we were young. You know, I didn't have the language I have today. And even today I still have moments when I struggle. But back in the day I didn't have the language. He didn't have the language. We often miscommunicated. I started studying again because I wanted to finish my degree and everything. So I was studying in the evening, working through the day. I asked him to study as well. He tried, he started, but I think he became depressed. And at the time I didn't know. And looking back, I think he became depressed. And then he stopped studying and he started drinking.
What
we weren't going out anymore. We weren't, you know.
What were you both doing for work?
Working on a shop.
Oh, what was the shop?
It was an electric shop, like electrical supplies.
His family shop?
No, just a shop.
Huh. Okay, so it was like you stopped going out and having fun, but he was just drinking.
Yeah, he was kind of drinking after work. We had a video game, you know, he played a lot of video games. I played some as well, you know, but it wasn't like... It wasn't the life I wanted to live, you know. I enjoyed the family side of it, but it wasn't the social side of it.
Mm. Did you have a good group of friends?
Not really. No, there wasn't a lot of socialization, not a lot of, you know.
And you weren't like super connected to the Brazilian community?
Yeah, no, in here, no. I had lots of friends in São Paulo, you know, I kind of had more of a social life in there, and here I really missed it. And then maybe he felt inadequate for not being able to provide that for me, you know. Looking back, you know, I think I might have led him into depression, really.
No.
Well, somehow, you know, it was a real shock for me to move, the new culture, and maybe he felt responsible.
So it's like a codependent thing. Because it's like not for someone to be responsible for their partner's social life, right?
When you're 23,
Yeah.
right, he was like, oh, I brought her from abroad, you know.
Oh, because he convinced you to stay.
Yeah. And now she doesn't like it, it's my fault.
Yeah, but it was like consensual.
Yeah, it was consensual, but I wasn't mature enough to know at the time. I think I did blame him, you know, thinking, oh, I didn't come for this. And then he didn't know what to do about it. Under pressure, started drinking, which made it worse. Then that didn't work out.
So what happened from that?
After 2.5 years, we separated, and I then had to get on with my life on my own.
So was that really painful?
It was very difficult. His family didn't like it at all, and I understand them. He was very upset. I was very upset. There was a lot of drama.
But it was you being like, I need...
But it was me, yeah. I mean, I knew that wasn't gonna go anywhere good the way it was. Not for me, not for him.
And so you decided to stay?
At that point, I was at uni. So I wanted to at least finish that. I was thinking still of going back.
So you got a place for yourself?
Yeah, I stayed in that place that we were. He went back to his parents, which was also a good thing. I really thought that would be good for him.
And then what happened from that?
Oh, then I dated a married man. That was a nightmare, but it didn't last long. It was very enriching because now I know what that is like, and I understand when people see married man, you know, kind of what goes on. He did separate from and divorced his wife eventually, but then by the time he did that, I didn't want him anymore. It was kind of a defense, you know. It was just too much suffering. It's just a horrible, horrible experience for someone.
For him?
For me. To see a married man is just horrible. It's the worst thing you can do.
Because you feel guilty all the time?
Oh,
what?
More than guilty, you feel used. You are a secret. So you are being lied to all the time. The wife is being lied to all the time. It's just unfair on everyone.
How did you meet him?
On a pub.
And did you know?
No, at the beginning, no.
Okay, so it's a situation where... Because, you know, I guess some people are attracted to that, right? And they go...
No, I didn't know,
Yeah.
if you... I suppose, like, maybe if you work together and you know the person is married and you go like, oh, you know, I would love to have an affair with that married person. No, that was not like that.
Yeah.
Met him at the pub. One of his friends, his work colleagues were there. His work colleagues told my friend that he was married and he denied. And I thought they were just pulling his leg. He was and still is incredibly handsome and charming. He's an artist. It's just, he would talk about anything. He was extremely cultured.
English as well?
English, yeah. Posh English. Like, oh, gorgeous. And I just fell for him, you know.
And when did you find out he was married?
Pretty soon. But it didn't take me long to fall for him anymore. And also, I didn't think I would ever meet anyone like him.
And did he tell you, like, he was gonna leave his wife? And
yes,
blah, blah, blah?
Yes.
And, like, he only wanted to be with you and whatever?
Yes. Exactly.
And did his wife ever find out about you, or you don't know?
I don't think she did. I don't think she did.
Do you think there were other women as well?
No. Unless he was a magician.
So how long were you together?
I think it was a couple of years, you know.
And what were you doing at this time?
We weren't necessarily in a relationship. We were kind of drinking buddies who would have sex. But he would text me all the time. He would give me a lot of attention. And it was quality attention. You know, they were quality conversations. He elevated my brain. I was craving that. Because I went from São Paulo, who is a very intellectual place, to London to be with people who just didn't have that level of education. Working in the shop, you know. The people at uni were, but I couldn't barely see them, you know, we studied in the evening. Now he was very well educated, well read and artistic, and, you know, it was just, we would go to exhibitions, we would, you know, it was just what I needed at the time.
Was he a similar age?
No, he was 10 years older.
And so it was like an emotional connection as well.
Yeah.
And would he like depend on you emotionally?
I don't know.
Like you could share stuff that you were feeling and whatever.
Yeah, he would. Which at the time I didn't have the maturity to take as well, you know. He was talking about cognitive dissonance, you know. Oh, I don't want to leave my kids, but I want to be with you. And on my end it's like, but it's not fair. You know, it's your wife is not free to find someone who actually loves her.
Huh.
And even though she says she doesn't want to be free, she doesn't really know what she's saying, because obviously she didn't want to lose him, but I'm sure she's better off now.
Were you able to depend on him as like a genuine friend or person in your life?
Friend, yeah, just a friend. Like, I could talk. We would chat a lot on WhatsApp, you know. There was constant conversations, but I would only see him once a week.
But if something went wrong, you could call him for help, or not really?
I never really called anyone for help.
Huh. You just deal with stuff on your own?
Yeah. Which was actually, I felt really held in England as well when my separation happened, and I was alone and I was broken, and I went to my GP, I went to, you know, the WP. They gave me the Department of Work and Pensions. They gave me housing benefit. I had my GP gave me antidepressants, sent me to therapy. I had a free dentist, you know, kind of. I felt really held by the system, by the government. I remember that very clearly, thinking, okay, well, thank God I'm in a country where you feel quite held.
Yeah, I guess because of your immigration status. Because, like, I don't get access to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that. It was a big difference from when I first arrived.
Yeah.
To then when I was separated and I was a resident.
Yeah. Huh. And what were you doing? So what did you do after you finished uni and stopped working in the shop?
I found a job. I found an internship. It's a startup that had 6 people working on it.
Doing what?
Selling theatre tickets.
And at what point did you move away from North London?
Oh, a long time ago. We moved to Bermondsey, then we moved to Canary Wharf.
Wait, who's we?
Me and my ex-husband.
Oh, okay.
Then in Canary Wharf, he left.
And you stayed
and
there?
I stayed in Canary Wharf.
And then when did you move to West London?
when I was working at this company, the ticketing company.
Huh. And
because that was in West London, it was just a nightmare to cross. Oh no, sorry, I moved to Clapham first.
And at what point did you decide I'm going to stay in the UK?
I haven't. Hasn't happened yet.
Huh. So it was always just like, okay, I'll do this next thing and then see.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so what was your journey back to psychology? Because you did lots of different things, right?
Yeah, so this internship was in marketing. And I stayed there for 7 years. And I grew within the company. And by the end I was head of marketing. And I was getting paid well. And I put a deposit on my flat and stuff. But then they sold the company to an American company. And the culture is just too different. And I didn't like it. So they made me redundant. And also I had done a master's in data science because I thought that's what I wanted. True is that I like challenges. I like chess. I like developing. Coding was very fun. Statistics is really fun. It calls back the maths, which was fun. Maths per se was fun, not the job prospect I didn't want. So that kind of seduced me, and the masters itself was really fun to do and really interesting. But when I tried to find a job as a data scientist, I couldn't find a job, but also because the only job they would give me was very junior, which is obvious. But I didn't want to start from a junior position as a junior data scientist. I wanted to be a manager of some sort. But I didn't have the words to apply for the role I wanted.
So you studied that while you were working in your job?
Yeah.
Your marketing job?
Yeah.
And why did you not pursue psychology to begin with?
That's a good question. So when I was in São Paulo, I had a very good friend who was a Jungian psychologist and an author and everything. And she stopped being a therapist, a Jungian analyst, when a client of hers came in and she said that she was sexually abused as a child. And now she had a child. She felt like sexually abusing her child. She said that was too much for her and she quit. So I had that in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of becoming a therapist, but I don't know what's going to come in. I don't know what people are going to come in with. So I always had that at the back of my mind. And when I was doing the psychology degree, I was kind of hoping that it would prepare me for that. But nothing did. Nothing from my psychology degree prepared me to sit with a person in a consulting room, listening to them, feeling compassionate about it. So then I thought that the problem was me and gave up on the idea. I just thought I wasn't suited. Enjoyed everything that I learned, but I thought I'm not suited. That's just not for me. I'm gonna do data science instead, or marketing instead, or coding, or math, or whatever. Maybe that's the side of me that will lead me to a peaceful career.
And what were you motivated at the point that you were your first job and working your way up in that marketing role?
Well, money, recognition, the fact that I could do it, I found it easy. It came natural to me. I just kind of got on with stuff. I didn't find it difficult.
But in terms of the bigger picture of your life,
it was a stepping stone, yeah, definitely. But I didn't know a stepping stone to what.
And you wanted to make money, or was it about proving yourself or being independent, or
Being independent, definitely. Making enough money so I could make myself a foundation from which I could then be independent.
From men?
From men, yeah, from family. I mean, I didn't have anyone, and I knew I didn't have a man either. So there was nothing for me to be dependent on. I knew that I had to do it alone.
Well, I mean, because you could have just found someone else, but it was like...
With my luck at the time, I didn't think I would.
Huh. So it was like a survival thing.
Yeah, there was at no point I even thought I would ever remarry. You know, I didn't even think I would ever find anyone.
Huh.
I had a strong belief that I just wouldn't find anyone suitable. Mostly because I wasn't suitable. That was how I saw myself.
Huh. And did you feel like a failure from your marriage?
Definitely, yeah.
And it was like there was something wrong with you and that's why it didn't work or something?
Yeah, definitely.
Huh. And did you find, like, what was kind of the picture you had for your life, or you were just figuring it out?
Yeah, I was figuring it out. I thought in the process of working, I will find something I like and then I'll go for it. So I started doing some coding, minimal coding, and enjoying it and think, oh, maybe that's where I want to go. I can use my math skills with coding that equals data science, you know. Maybe that's interesting, something that's high in demand, I will go for that.
And you thought you'd find meaning as well in your work?
Yeah, in a statistical way. Because it is interesting. I mean, my psychology degree was heavily statistical, and that is fun, right? To get numbers and find things out. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean in the broader scheme, if people are like, oh, what I want to do with my life is have a family or meet, and like if you thought, well, I'm never going to meet someone.
Yeah.
You thought, and you're living away from Brazil and whatever, you were like, I'll find purpose and you've been someone that you thought about philosophy and what meaning is.
Yes. So that's an interesting point, because I got to a point where I was doing the masters I wanted. I had the job that I wanted. I had the salary I wanted. I could go out, eat, I could buy any clothes I wanted. I had put a deposit on my flat. I wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy going out for dinner with people for the sake of it, just because the restaurant was expensive or good. I didn't enjoy buying clothes. There was a lot still from my mom, my brother, my sister. They are there in Brazil. They are in trouble. I have enough money for me, but I don't have enough to solve their problems, because there's a different level of money that you needed, like hundreds of thousands of pounds, which I wouldn't have.
But could money even solve that? Like, you need more than money.
I guess you always think that money can solve everything in a way, you know, maybe it's a wishful thinking thing.
Yeah.
So I always felt kind of inadequate for not being able to help my mom. So always kind of feeling really all of those emotions and feeling inadequate, feeling that I was lazy, feeling that I wasn't dedicated, that maybe all I got was because I was lucky or attractive, and thinking the moment I'm no longer attractive, I'm doomed. I better make money while I'm attractive, because later on people are not going to give me the same opportunities. I better find a partner, you know, I better... I was a ball of nerves, and I was deeply unhappy, and I was taking antidepressants and they were not doing anything, and I was trying therapy left, right and center, and it wasn't doing anything.
How old were you at this point?
Oh, this is between 26 and 36.
Huh. And you were seeing that guy at some point in this?
That was at the start, yeah. So, you know, kind of from the start, I was getting all I wanted, but I was deeply unhappy. So unhappy that I just had to cry sometimes, you know. Sometimes I would just run myself a bath and cry. Nothing had happened. I just knew that I was lost, my soul was lost. I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing.
And how... I almost feel like it needs to be like, okay, come back for part 3 when it's like, because obviously there's so much more to this. And I'm also like, how was, you know, how often were you going home, and like what was your relationship like with your mum?
Oh, it improved. So relationship improved. I went back every 2 years, but there was no phone calls. Like my mum hardly ever really said anything when you were not there.
And she was getting better?
No, she was getting worse. She got better and then she got worse. She stopped drinking a long time ago, but then she became depressed after a while and stopped leaving the house. And that's what killed her.
Huh. And were your siblings still in that town with her?
They all moved to Florianopolis because that's where my brother wanted to live and my sister wanted to live. They liked the beach, which is fair enough.
And did you feel bad that you weren't there with your mum?
Yes, all the time, yes.
They didn't make you feel bad?
No. They are very good people. They are so sweet. No.
Okay, so how did you turn things around? By the way, I was thinking with that that sexual abuse thing, it's like with IFS, it's like you have the framework.
I'll
right?
go back to that. So what turned my life around was the driving test.
Oh my god.
It was this driving test, eh? There's a funny thing about it. So I decided I had my redundancy payment. I could buy a car. I wanted to buy a car. I had to get my driving test now. Had to do it. So I went to King's Lynn, did a 7-day intensive for automatic because I thought it's easier. And on the last day of the test, this last day of the course, like tomorrow is the test, I was a ball of nerves. I'm never going to pass this test. I already know I'm not going to be able to sleep. And I was walking from the driving place back to the hotel. I walked past the hypnotherapist office. And I knocked and I asked if she had a slot, and I explained, and she said, yes, sure, come in, let's do it now. And she did.
Did you know anything about hypnotherapy?
No.
But you just thought, this person can help me.
I had no option. Yeah, it was desperate. This is something if there's anything that I can do at this point, this is it. And she did, and I passed.
What happened in that session?
I don't remember much, but I remember her desensitizing me from the test itself, taking me to a safe space, and then walking me with my imagination through the test, saying that during the test I would be relaxed and comfortable, relaxed and confident, and it would be fine, and I had nothing to worry. I already knew how to drive. I'll just drive like all the other days that I did. I gave her a lot of background. I would just be the same like another day of test, another driving lesson day, just do the same. The examiner is going to be very nice and patient and understanding and just kind of primed. So when I went, it was no problem. I just drove and passed, no problem. I didn't even feel a hint of emotion. And then I thought, there's something here. There's something powerful here.
And then what?
Then I started researching hypnotherapy. Then I found online this course. If you don't like it, we'll give you money back in 30 days. It was expensive. It was like £2,500. It was during the pandemic. It took me a while to take action.
So what were you doing in between that?
I was doing marketing consultancy, trying and failing to get a data science job, and then doing marketing jobs. And then...
And you were still unhappy?
I was unhappy. And also I didn't want to work for anyone anymore, not even as a consultant. I thought, I want to work for myself. I want to have a direct relationship with my clients. I don't want anyone in between. But I think at the back of my mind there's always been, I want to be a therapist. Like that always has been there. So the hypnotherapy seemed like a more acceptable route.
How come?
Because hypnotherapy is more solution focused, Stop smoking, fear of driving, fear of flying, It felt like, somehow people wouldn't come to me with many difficult issues.
Because you were still scared of...
I was still scared, yeah. No, I felt unprepared completely, right? Still. So I did this hypnotherapy course, and it was lovely, and it was very thorough, and it took me a year to complete. It was great. I've learned a lot. I became calmer. I became more, everything became easier. But I knew there was something missing. I still didn't feel confident that if someone walked up to me and said, I've been sexually abused as a child, that how I would react. I still didn't think I would be able to hold that information. So then I looked for a new course, because I knew there was something big missing. If I can't hold everyone, if I'm scared of what the person is going to tell me, I shouldn't be here. So I found this other course, which is a person-centered course, and I did that. And the person-centered approach taught me this compassion, And then I found the IFS. And the IFS goes straight into trauma and straight into, sexual abuse is almost always there, throughout the whole of the lectures that I've watched. I bought a course online and I watched hours and hours of IFS sessions, and sexual abuse was a lot of the time, it came up a lot of the time, And then one day I did get, but I was already asking my clients, my hypnotherapy clients, would you be willing to try this method that I've learned, because I think it's very powerful? And they would go, yes. And then I'll do it, and they'll go, I'm glad we did that. So I became more and more confident, and then pretty soon, I started getting sexual abuse victims. And it was no problem at all. Nothing, I think, you can bring in this room that will feel too much for me.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of how I found out about IFS, which is really funny. It was from Gwyneth Paltrow's podcast, the group podcast.
Really?
Richard Schwartz was on it, because he goes on so many podcasts, and he's talking about murderers and rapists and that type of thing. So I think whenever I talk about it, I'm like, it's this really helpful model that explains how all of us are, and it can explain like how, someone can murder someone or whatever. It's like, for me, I think it's always had that like extreme, it's like this covers everything from like the most extreme. And I think that's maybe what's even given me the courage on this podcast to be like, I'm interested in understanding like all kinds of people who, someone who just came out of prison, and him talking about, even though it is still like confronting for someone talking about a murder or something like that, it gives you this, it's like you can be with it's safe to be with that part.
Yeah.
I think sexual abuse, though, that was someone on this podcast talked about sexual abuse. I think I've never heard, because people talk openly about being suicidal or going to end their life or taking, overdosing, whatever, taking drugs but then the sexual abuse, it was like, I think that's the first time I've ever heard someone reveal that, and then I kind of didn't know. Well, I guess I didn't know, like, because I'm probably pretty comfortable asking people about depression or whatever, but yeah.
I think it's because sexual abuse carries a lot of shame. And feelings of shame are just destroying. They're destroying. They're the most painful emotion you can experience, I think, shame. And that's why it's so difficult for people to bring it out. They just feel completely ashamed. It's very, very difficult, isn't it? Something religious, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sexuality is still a heavy, even though we say, we're liberated, are we really,
Yeah, I remember Googling, that's really weird, but I remember Googling that once of like, when did humans compared to other animals don't have shame around sex, right? They just have sex in public, in wherever they are in the wild. They're not like, we need to have privacy. And I was like, at what point did humans evolve to like have privacy around that stuff? As in, even like in a consensual, I mean, I'm obviously not saying like abuse people in private or at all, but because I think, because even with violence, it's interesting because with violence, it's like that's sensation, like that's like all in films and books, and people like love listening to like true crime and like really messed up stuff, which I'm kind of like, why? Like, is this really good for our psyche? But it's weird because with sexual trauma, it's not like that. Because it's very deep, like you're describing growing up in violence in a household and drinking and stuff, and people are familiar with, like, people view this like on TV all the time, this type of stuff.
It's interesting because in the biblical sense, when we came down from the Garden of Eden, we started covering ourselves. Is that then the birth of shame, in the sense that we experience it? Is that what makes us who we are? Is that how our society organized itself? Because of shame. That self-awareness, I'm naked. Ooh, what does it mean to be naked? It's shameful, isn't it?
Interesting. Because I guess some groups of people don't have that as much, right? In some, like, tribe still.
Shame is completely subjective, right? There's nothing objective about it.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful things that you taught me about, because unburdening a part that was carrying shame, and it was like, well, maybe a thinking part came in or something, and it was like, what's the point of this? The shame is just gonna be there. But you were like, no, it's like a virus, it spreads, but when we release it, like, it's gone forever and you're not gonna feel it anymore. And it was so crazy because that's what happened. And that, I kind of have had conversations with people around that when they feel, because often, it's that thing of like, I'm bad, like I've done something so bad, and now I'm like, no, you probably haven't. And even if even if you actually have done something bad, it's like, you're still a human, like every single other human. So, but actually it might be like, it wasn't bad. Because I was carrying shame around stuff that was like, I didn't do anything wrong. Which maybe that was like your childhood that it's like you're made to believe.
Yeah, and it was a source of shame, which is why it wasn't accessible to me. Too painful. Shame's too painful. Sure, I think back in the day we needed to shame each other for bad behavior, because bad behavior wasn't acceptable in a little tribe, hunter-gatherer tribe. But if you read the games people play, is it Eric Byrne, I think? Yeah, so he explains the nature of games, how we mostly unconscious because we just learn down the generations. So we kind of have coping strategies to live in society as groups, and shame is a powerful thing to stop one of them taking more food or you know, mostly kind of trying to make it fair by using shame. But I think now we passed that, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, maybe you still need it for like hurting children or stuff like that.
I would kind of really hope that we can move past shame so we can do things because we want to, because we understand what it is not to cause harm. If you're working on the basis of shame, then you will not cause harm in front of people, so you look good. Does that make sense? So shame is a social thing. You wouldn't feel shame if you were alone and no one knew what you did.
Yeah.
But if you know what you did, and if that doesn't feel good, then don't do it. But because you want to, not because you feel shame.
And then I guess we just need tools for situations when people have something missing in their brain or something, when they can't understand that they're doing something bad. They
don't feel shame, yeah.
Like if you're like a psychopath or something, murdering someone and you to have no remorse.
But if you read about psychopaths and listen to, there are some people who have been diagnosed with psychopathy, but they have a voice. They're not evil. Emotions do guide us, yes, towards what's right and wrong, like compassion, for example, right? And it's true that extreme rationality leads to unreason, right? So if you're completely rational, you may come to certain conclusions, but you wouldn't act on them because they are unreasonable. So there is an element of emotion that guides us, but we also have a very conscious understanding of the world. And if you look from the point of fairness, you understand that harming people is not a good thing. So you have the choice not to do it, even if you don't feel bad about it. So is in a way, taking shame out of the equation would help us become to have more clarity, to think more clearly, and just evolve.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No need for shame. Because I think it's also, that makes stuff worse, right? When it's like someone's done something wrong and then they're shamed and then they're like a non-human or there's some other. And then what are they supposed to do? They're like not part of the tribe, so why would they then conform to the tribe? Whereas if it's, so that's more like rehabilitation or whatever, like approaching it with compassion, people in prison who have done really bad things, but it's like instead of like they're gonna be outside forever, which kind of doesn't even make sense because it's like you're spending money to like keep these people miserable. Like if you're gonna spend money, why wouldn't you spend it to like,
it's very primitive, I think. Shaming, the whole shaming thing and feeling shame, because then we do what we do in a macro level, we do it on a micro level as well. So that's what's happening at home, and that's what's happening internally I'm shaming my parts that do something that I don't approve of. So I'm gonna exile them. Sorry.
This is a massive tangent, but it was so interesting. On Twitter, I was having this conversation with these people who, there was this lynching in Palestine a month ago or something, and these people were saying, I was like, oh my god, this is terrible, like this is awful. Like you could see the image of these people, like the whole thing of them being executed publicly by this mob. And then the people, I was having this conversation with people who like didn't understand, like they were like, obviously like this person is a traitor, like they're a spy, they've shared information with Israel. And I was like immediately like outraged of like, how can you think like killing someone in the street? But then it was like, that was me being like, then I took time to like understand this person, like hang on, this person genuinely believes that. And they were like confused, they were like, what would you do? And it was like, you need a fair trial. And I'm like, okay, but even if there was a fair trial, they would be guilty, so obviously you kill them. But it was like, there was no, and I don't know, it was so interesting because from like the immediate reaction is like, you're just like a terrible person that you, like how could you even think like this? But then it's like, hang on, this person is like very genuinely doesn't understand, like, and it's like that's their view. And by approaching it with, they're actually like interested in like learning or like having a conversation. And I don't know, it was just like something about, like that's actually how you can progress, by being like, I couldn't convince that person by being like, you're wrong, because that would be shaming them,
yes,
kind of.
Yes.
Like you have the wrong views.
Yes.
But it's like, hang on, like I actually have to come at it with like understanding in order to influence them to.
And it's really hard because we're brought up on shame. So patience is really difficult. Compassion is difficult. We live in fear. We live in fear of being shamed. That means we struggle to make genuine connections. We struggle to open up, to be genuine.
Huh. Yeah, is that maybe why people don't... Because I've noticed it's like people can struggle to disagree. Like now I'm doing this thing where I'm being like, it's good to disagree. Like you should welcome like people have different views and like you can discuss them and like it can be totally amicable. Because it's almost like people like, oh, this might be wrong. Like people seem sensitive to like understand how the other person thinks first before sharing. Which that's probably about shame of having the wrong view or something.
Oh yeah, and it depends on your household as well. So if you were brought up by people who made it so it's good when you're right and it's wrong when you're wrong, it means that you're stupid. If you're wrong, you're stupid, you should be ashamed. Then you bring that up as being wrong is shameful. So you're not going to take the risk, the stakes are too high. Shame is just terrible. It's just really painful, almost unbearable. So you won't take risks when it comes to it.
Okay, that was a tangent. But how did you... So at what point did you stop feeling really depressed? Because you haven't said it now, but you were like, got to points of like extremely depressed, right? Where it was like, what's the point in continuing?
Yeah. I hoarded some pills. But there's this curious part of me that's like, well, before you do that, let's just go to Thailand. Why not? Before you do that, let's go to Thailand, blow all the money, and then you can decide if you still want to do it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
Wow. When was that?
Well, I couldn't find a job for 18 months. And I thought that my life was over.
But you're doing the marketing consultancy?
Yeah, but the marketing consultants was at the end of the 18 months. So for 18 months I couldn't find any work at all. And that was so destroying. Now I don't see it that way. But at the time I was thinking, so I did a master's, I did a degree, I have 10 years experience and I can't find a job, then how does that work? What did I do?
And every day you're spending just looking for jobs?
Yeah. Hundreds of applications.
And you had a mortgage at that point?
Yes. I had my redundancy money, which is exactly what it's for, because it's not easy to get money when you've been redundant to get a job. And also, I didn't realize, but there was an impact of my age and gender, and I had one recruiter asking, are you going to have children soon? So, I knew that was a thing as well.
Even though you were single?
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty tough. And but then I went to Thailand, I did my yoga teaching course and it was great, and that changed me. Thailand changed me. First of all is perspective. It's like, this is the opposite of luxury. I was sleeping on a cabin that just had 2 beds, and it was really hot, and it was all stripped down to basics. And I felt like everyone else. I wasn't a boss, I was just one of the 12 girls that were there. And that felt really nice. I forgot what that was like, because I was just being a boss and everyone kind of tiptoeing around me. And there, people were just talking to me like no one, like I was nobody, which generally I am nobody. So it brought me down to earth. And it made me reassess what was important. And I thought it's important to be part of a group. It's important to be equal. It's important to be humble. I wasn't humble. I was too hurt to be humble, too scared to be humble.
What, you really arrogant?
I was actually. I think I was.
Huh.
Because the reasoning is like, I worked so hard to be here, so don't talk to me like that. But then being equal with everyone else, I realized actually that doesn't benefit me at all. It just creates a distance between me and other people, which is the opposite of what I want.
Huh.
So I was able to realize that I had this attitude, which I didn't realize at the time, and then drop it.
You had that attitude to people below you or above you?
Oh yeah, everybody. Everybody. It was like, I worked so hard, I deserve to be here. There's it. I'm not gonna take any shit. No, I take a lot more shit. Not a lot more, but more, yeah. I'm more selective. More selective to when I step up or not, but generally I want to be closer to people. I will not respond to every misunderstanding, kind of will be very forgiving, very understanding. I'll look for clarity. I will keep the connection going if I can, even if I think I'm right,
Yeah, it's like the flexible boundary thing.
Oh, okay.
Or it's like, there's this analogy thing I love that it's like, be the peach, not the clam. So a peach is like soft on the outside but like really tough on the inside. So it's like you have firm boundaries, like you know what you deserve and you won't let people walk over you, but you don't need to be like aggressive.
That's
you can
exactly
be like
right.
like really lovely, kind person. Like people don't need to know that underneath you're like, you're a fucking idiot. Like you don't have to say that to someone, because that's, and then the clam is like hard on the outside, super hard, which I think people can have the overreaction when they don't have boundaries, and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna have boundaries. Like, no, fuck you, I'm not gonna, like, and they don't compromise at all, but then you're just actually inside you're like soft and
vulnerable. That's exactly right. That's a good that's a wonderful metaphor, because I was soft in the inside, very vulnerable, carrying a lot of shame, carrying a lot of feelings of being inadequate and that the world was unfair, and then in the outside I was tough. But then that trip to Thailand made me feel, actually, it's okay to be soft. But I knew I had a lot to heal. I just didn't know how. I didn't know it was even possible.
And what point was that in the 18 months?
It's still ongoing.
But I mean the yoga trip.
The yoga trip was maybe, I don't know exactly. It was at the 6 months maybe, because I went to Thailand. When I came back, everything was in lockdown.
Oh.
And then I was going to be a yoga teacher. I couldn't be a yoga teacher because there was no yoga happening.
So then you were still looking for the data science job?
Yeah, I was basically hoping to find something I could do remote.
And then you got the marketing consultancy?
At the end of lockdown, a year later.
And when did the hypnosis thing happen? Before all this? I
started considering during it. And I possibly started the course before the end of the 18 months. But I wasn't taking it that seriously. I didn't think I would. I just had a lot of time.
Yeah, okay. But you'd done the driving test or whatever before all this?
Yeah, I did the driving test before. That was the first thing I did. As soon as I was made redundant, that was the first thing I did, because I just really wanted a car. It was my dream.
Wow. So this was like a whole journey during lockdown.
Yeah. Lots of time to think, I guess.
And then when did you feel like you found the path?
When I found IFS.
Oh.
Before IFS, I didn't know what I was doing.
But you took some clients?
Yeah, I did, on the basis of the hypno-CBT that I was taught.
And this is after lockdown?
Yeah. But I always felt that there was something missing.
And then you found IFS?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
I saw the day I saw a webinar. It's more than 2 years ago now. 2021.
And since then it's been like, this is the direction.
Yes, I was discouraged out of it for a while by the course I'm doing, in favor of other techniques. They're like, no, you need to do, and then I did, but then I thought, no, it's good to know all the other techniques and everything, and I can do that. I can use those techniques with the parts, but I need to go into parts before we do anything else. Or at least, I need to get... I think that the most powerful intervention is to separate from the parts, just to create that relationship with your parts, like, this is not me. I am something, and then I have those parts. And from that point onwards, everything is so much easier. But if you don't get to that understanding, then you're talking to someone who is still contradicting themselves and confused, and just... So for me, it's important to get to that point where we separate from the parts. And then just that by itself changes how your body responds, because before you were just very sure. I'm angry right now. I'm really sure that I need to be angry. Now it's like, oh, part of me is angry. Your body goes, should I be angry? What's going on? It's part of me. What does that mean? So you don't get that rush of anger like you did before. And yeah, so I discovered, since I've realized that, there is no point for me not to do it. Because I feel like I'm not going to be honest. I'm not being genuine and straightforward if I don't do it.
And I mean, is that the point when you discovered that? Is that the point when you're like, okay, now my life is making sense and this is...
Yes. I accepted a lot of spirituality that I have completely closed off for many years. When I came to yoga, actually, I went very skeptical to that course, and I came out with a lot of questions. That was very important. And then those questions opened up a whole world for me. Well, before I was sure, oh, this is what it is, I'm sure. I was so sure of everything, I was sure of myself, but feeling terrible.
And now you feel...
Oh, I feel so much better. I feel so much better. I'm not sure what's going on at all. I kind of also don't really feel the need to know everything. I have more questions every day. I'm taking a very loose approach to things, kind of observant rather than judging. I'm observing a lot more. I'm taking it in a lot more. I'm having more doubt. Doubt. I think that's very important.
And you're excited for what the future holds?
Yes, I am. Are you?
Yeah, I'm excited for what your future holds.
Well, thank you.
Like, it feels like it's just the beginning.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you did catch me at post IFS, session, which was really nice, and I always feel very nice after for a while. I'm sure there will be something else coming up later, but right now I feel pretty good. It was a big relief to understand the past. Even if it's all just imagination, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is that, I feel more calm. I feel more patient. I feel more understanding towards people. I don't get irritated with them so much. It helps my relationships. It helps. I did this 4-week work with a group of people, which went really well. If that was 3-4 years ago, I don't think that would have been so easy. Because there were very stressful moments. And I was able to be stressed and still be kind. Before, that was unknown to me. As soon as I was stressed, I would become aggressive. But I was able to hold, understanding and patience and calm, even though when things seemed to be falling apart.
I think it's probably going to be very difficult for anyone listening to this podcast to imagine you being aggressive, as it is for me as well.
Really? Oh, well, if anyone knew me before listening to this, they will not understand what's going on. They're thinking, who?
Huh.
I am ashamed of who I was. How I was. Not who I was, how I was. In many occasions.
But in a compassionate way.
In a compassionate way, yes.
Without the shame.
Well, I still have a little bit of shame, I look back and I think, oh no, I just really wish I didn't say those things, or didn't say those things, that basically.
But then that's something you can work on, right?
Yeah, I can. I am working on it. Working on being the best version, the kindest version.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe if there's a part of you that, sorry, this is just funny because I'm like, you're the psychologist, but that wants you to, that you think you're not allowed to forgive yourself, or that...
I'm nothing that you're not. You have a lot of insight. I respect that. What did you say? Part of me?
If there's part of you, like you feel like you can't release that because part of you thinks that you still should suffer for the bad behavior or something.
Much more subtle than that. It's just a feeling at the moment. It's just a little, in my heart, like, who I say those things? I don't have the whole process laid out yet. It's something to visit, certainly, but I don't have it yet. It's just that a little knot, like something that feels, and I know it's shame.
Yeah. It's so interesting when people just don't, like they just don't have shame, like there's nothing they could be embarrassed or... I feel like, I don't know, the people that immediately come to mind are all men. But I'm like, how do they, like they can write something stupid? Because mine is more like, I'll share things or write something and then it will be like, oh my God, this is so cringe, like what are people gonna think, blah, blah, blah. And then I know people who, they just like could not give a fuck. And I'm like, they're so much freer.
I don't know, because I thought I didn't carry any shame. And then I was surprised to find out that I carried a lot of shame.
Huh.
So I think that when you act overconfidently, it might be a compensation.
Huh.
There is some process there.
It's like layers.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even some sort of delusion, You just tell yourself a story and you go for that story. And the story could be like, what people think doesn't matter to me. I don't care what they think or something like that. We don't know. Only the person working through all these processes will understand. Well, they say psychopaths feel no shame, no guilt. I don't know much about that. But I wonder if that's just so strong for them that they block it out. Who knows?
But yeah, I guess the only thing I can do is, like, if I want to feel more free to, to not have that part of me come up, then it's like, okay, I can work with that. Or maybe create new stories that help me or something.
And also being able to hold the shame is the hardest, but that is possibly the healthiest. Because you wouldn't, I don't think we'll ever get rid of shame. It's just letting your system know that it is okay to feel shame. For a while, it will be very uncomfortable. It's very painful. It's terrifying. But you're strong. And you can cope.
Yes. Oh my God, this is so interesting because I met a really young founder who is like, has raised all this money, is managing all these people, and he's like really young. And he was saying like, there's one part of him that's like, what am I doing? Like, I'm employ all these people who like have 20 years more experience than me. But then he was like, no, but then I just say like, I'm a god, like I'm this. And I was like, oh my God, these are like these two parts. But actually neither is the answer, because you're not a god, like you are actually human. And it's good to have some doubt, because otherwise you'd be like a full like narcissist or whatever it is. Like you'd be delusional. So it was like the way to handle it is to know that's like a voice and it's just a part of you, and it's like sit with it and it's okay. And because it was like, no, but if you accept, it was like all these people had the same view that they're like, no, because if you listen to that voice, it becomes true and like you'll become weak and like you have to shut it out and suppress it. I was like, yeah, that's never gonna work.
We are all delusional most of the time. It's only rare that we get moments of clarity. When you sit down and I think listening to the parts, that's when you get some clarity and you can see, oh yeah. But still, like, we are imaginative beings. We are crazy. We are completely delusional most of the time.
And create stories.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So that's why I think the most important thing is to have doubts, like you said. Just have doubts. Just being very sure is very dangerous.
But yeah, there's probably a lot of convincing for some people who will think that makes them weak or...
Yes, there is fear of doubt, fear of compassion, because, fear of feeling vulnerable.
And this is probably, I'm just thinking of like all the stuff that goes on in the world with power and conflict and like, is that like for dictators who it's like they need to believe those things, like if they had any, it's like that's what's holding the whole thing together for them to have that much power over so many people.
And also the belief that you're right. There has to be a strong belief that you are on the right side of things. You're morally correct, morally superior. Because there has to be a moral element.
So even when it's like they're causing like millions of people to starve to death, it's still...
It's justified because it's morally superior, it's morally right, it's for the good, it's for the greater good. I don't think anyone engages in that sort of behavior if they don't believe it's for the greater good.
Oh, okay, sorry, we've gone super long.
I guess you can edit it.
No, I never edit it. No, it's good. No. Okay, but is there anything else before we wrap up?
No.
Anything reflecting on the first episode or not? Or where can people find you if you want them to find you? Or
they can find me from my website, which will be on the notes, I guess. And my phone number is there, my email is there. I think the social media links in there, but I don't really look at social media very much, so yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, feel free to share it with someone. And also, a random 23-year-old just messaged me on Instagram and told me he found the podcast through the algorithm. So it actually does help if you review the podcast and subscribe or follow. And then you get to find out about future episodes as well. Review or rate, you know what I mean. Anyway, it would truly make my day. So thank you in advance.